You are passing judgment in a case, you're defending the whole system, judicial corruption. That moment it arrived for me on a Thursday afternoon in September when the police chief Raymond Garrett entered my room. From the judge looked me in the eyes and said, "Judge, you need to understand something. I'm in charge. This city, you work for me. The case is going to disappear, or you are going to disappear." In 38 years on this stage, I had faced accused people, angry, desperate lawyers, and powerful people trying to use their influence to prevent the surrender of accounts. But no one had ever told me, directly threatened in court open. Never before had anyone declared so boldly that they controlled the system judicial, and certainly there never was. Had a police chief in functions telling me that he would disappear if he didn't follow his orders. What happened in the next 8 minutes? It shocked everyone in that room and led to the biggest corruption scandal in the history of Providence. But before tell them how he responded to the threat of Chief Garrett, they need to understand what he brought my court in the first place. Do you think corruption should be confronted, regardless of who exercise, which no badge grants immunity from justice, and that the judges must uphold the law, even when powerful people try to corrupt it, press that button. Subscribe right now, because what I did it to the police chief, Raymond Garrett, will remind them that some battles are worth it, even when they are dangerous. The case had begun 3 weeks earlier with what seemed a routine traffic stop. Officer Jennifer Walsh, a veteran of 5 years of the Police Department of Providence, had stopped an escalation black for running a red light Benefit Street, procedure standard. He approached the vehicle and asked license and registration. The driver was Marcus Chen, a software engineer at 34 years old with no criminal record. But what Officer Walsh saw in the back seat changed everything. 3 kilos of cocaine poorly concealed under a jacket with a street value of approximately $300,000. Officer Walsh requested backup, arrested Marcus Chen, and confiscated the vehicle. Marcus was charged with trafficking, drug trafficking, a serious crime that entails a mandatory minimum of 10 years in a state prison. It seemed like a case closed. Body camera video Officer Walsh showed everything, except that Marcus Chen swore he was innocent. He claimed he had never seen those drugs before. He said he had borrowed the Escalade from his cousin that morning because his own car was in the workshop. The Escalade belonged to his cousin David Chen, and David Chen was the nephew of the police chief, Raymond Garrett. Suddenly, what should have been, it has been a simple case of trafficking. The drug case got complicated. The lawyer for Marcus, a public defender named Sarah Martinez, presented motions claiming that the drugs were planted. It presented records, phone calls showing that Marcus had borrowed the car at 8 Tingrelay. The traffic stoppage occurred at 8:47 a.m. She argued that there was no way Marcus could have known about drugs in a vehicle that had been driving for less than 1 hour. The prosecutor's office of district, under pressure from somewhere, he offered Marcus a deal to declare himself guilty of possession, obtain freedom, probationary release, and no jail time. Marcus, he refused. "I didn't do this. I won't say that. I did." That's when they put on strange things. Officer Walsh suddenly transferred to duties administrative. Your personal file, formerly impeccable, suddenly expressed complaints about his performance, anonymous complaints that appeared after he arrested Marcus Chen. Sarah Martinez received a phone call to her home late at night. A male voice said, "Leave the angle of the planted evidence. Accept the plea agreement. No, don't make this complicated." She reported it to the police. Nothing happened. Then, the prosecutor handling the case, Jennifer Chen, who has no connection to Marcus, recused himself, abruptly, citing possible conflicts of interest that he did not specify. The case landed in my file for a preliminary hearing to determine if there was sufficient evidence to go to trial. It was then that the Chief of Police Officer Raymond Garrett made his appearance. The audience was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Marcus Chen sat down at the table of the defense with Sarah Martinez. The table of the prosecutor's office was empty. The new prosecutor, he wasn't still catching up present, but seated in the first row of the gallery in formal uniform. Chief Raymond Garrett was there, complete 62 years old, a 35-year veteran in the police officer and chief for the last 8 years. She wore her uniform like a armor, his chest covered in mentions, honorary awards, service medals, citations to the Value and Leadership Awards. He was a man who had built a career seemingly untouchable, but his presence in my court was unusual. The bosses do not attend hearings, preliminary steps for drug cases. They have departments to manage, press conferences to give, politicians to meet with. My presence there sent a message. I simply didn't know yet what it was. That message. Your Honor, Sarah began Martinez, before proceeding with the preliminary hearing, I need to call to the court's attention on something. My client Marcus Chen maintains his innocence. The drugs found in the vehicle belongs to David Chen. The vehicle owner, David Chen, is nephew of the police chief, Raymond Garrett, who is present in this room today. She paused. Your Honor, in the 3 weeks since my arrest, things have started happening to the client. Strange. Officer Walls, who performed the arrest, has been transferred to desk job. I have received threatening phone calls. The original prosecutor recused himself, and multiple witnesses who were present at they have denied the arrest scene suddenly started talking to me, quoting advice from the police department. I looked at Chief Garrett. His expression wasn't, he had changed. Calm, confident, impassive. Miss Martinez, those are serious accusations. Do you have proof do they support this interference pattern? Your Honor, I have the documents for transfer of Officer Walsh dated 2 days after the arrest. I have phone records that show calls to my personal cell phone from untraceable numbers. I have emails from witnesses declaring that they were advised not to get involved, and I have this. She maintained a document. This is the record of the vehicle for the scale shows to David Chen as the owner. This is David Chen's arrest record. He has 2 prior convictions for trafficking of drugs, and this is a memorandum from Providence Police Department marked as confidential, that of some. The way it arrived at my office shows that David Chen has been an informant, confidential for the department for the last 3 years, an informant personally directed by the Chief Garrett. The room erupted in whispers. I raised my hand to ask silence. Miss Martinez, how he obtained a police memo confidential? It was left in my mailbox. The public defender's office. Your Honor, anonymously, someone inside the department wants this information to be public. I looked at the document. It looked authentic. Letterhead police. Correct format. The signature of Chief Garrett at the bottom. Chief Garrett, I said, you are present in this room. Would you like to answer these accusations? He stood up slowly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 3 decades in the application of the law. Your Honor, I am here as a concerned citizen and as the police chief who wants to ensure let justice be done. David Chen was an informant, that's correct, but his status as an informant is irrelevant. In this case, Marcus Chen was caught with 3 kilos of cocaine. The evidence is clearly, Officer Walsh did her job. The fact that Marcus turns out to be related to a former informant not change the evidence. Former informant. Sarah Martinez jumped on the word. So David Chen is no longer an informant. Chief Garrett's jaw. He tensed up. That's not relevant to these procedures. Your Honor, he continued Sarah, I think it's very relevant. I think that David Chen was using the vehicle from his cousin to transport drugs. I think when Officer Walsh stopped that vehicle and found the drugs, without knowing this, he arrested the nephew of the chief of police. And I think everything that has happened since the transfer, the threats, the pressure, has been on to protect David Chen and by extension to protect Chief Garrett from the scandal having a nephew who is a drug trafficker, who was also an informant for the police. She turned to face them, to the boss directly. I think the boss Garrett has been providing protection to his nephew, allowing him to sell drugs under the guise of being an informant. And when my client borrowed innocently, that vehicle became in the scapegoat of charges that they should file a complaint against David Chen. The silence in the room was absolute. Martinez had just accused the boss of corrupt police in court open. Chief Garrett's face. He turned red. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Miss Martinez is making outlandish accusations without evidence. He's trying to create doubt, reasonable, attacking me personally. I demand that she be sanctioned for this conduct and proceed with the hearing based on the real evidence, not theories of conspiracy. Look at Sarah, Miss Martinez. Do you have proof that the boss Garrett has been protecting his nephew, or is this speculation? Your Honor, I have circumstantial evidence which forms a pattern. I have the history of David Chen's convictions. I have the confidential memo. I have the moment suspect in the transfer of the officer Walsh. I have the calls, threatening phone calls, and the intimidation of witnesses. Individually, these could be coincidences. Together, they form an image of corruption and cover-up. I went, Chief Garrett. Chief, where's David? Chen now? He's been arrested in connection to these drugs. No, Your Honor, there is no evidence to connect them with the drugs found in possession by Marcus Chen. The vehicle is registered in his name. The drugs, they were in their vehicle. That seems to be the case. Evidence at first glance. The vehicle, it was lent by Marcus. That makes Marcus is responsible for everything found in him. Although Marcus loaned the vehicle for less than an hour before being arrested, although David Chen. He has 2 prior drug convictions. Chief Garrett's voice hardened. Your Honor, I didn't come here to be questioned. I came here to ensure that justice must be served. Marcus Chen was caught with drugs. That's the only one. Relevant fact. I lay down. Something's wrong here. The pieces didn't fit. Software engineer with no prior experience, suddenly caught with $300,000 in cocaine in a vehicle that had taken borrowed that morning. A vehicle owned by the chief's nephew police officer who had a criminal record traffic officer who performed the suddenly transferred from arrest. Public defender receiving threats. Miss Martinez, I said, I will grant his motion for a postponement. I want that the district attorney's office investigate these allegations before proceed. I want to know why the officer Walsh was transferred. I want to know about those phone calls threatening, and I want to know where he is, David Chen, and why he hasn't been questioned about the drugs found in his vehicle. It was then that the Chief Garrett stood up and committed the biggest mistake of his career. Judge Caprio is making a mistake. His voice was cold and threatening. This case is progressing today. You don't have the authority to launch investigations on personnel decisions of police department. It is exceeding. Chief Garrett, I have all the authority to ensure that cases in my court will not be contaminated by external pressure or corruption. Sit down. He didn't sit down. Instead, he took a step, going forward past the railing of the gallery, approaching the stage. My sheriff, Officer D'Angelo, moved to intercept him, but Chief Garrett, he raised his hand. Judge, you need to understand something. Her voice was low, but I could hear him across the room, silent. I run this city. The police department responds to me. The mayor listens to me. The council of the city respects me. You are a judge, elected to a municipal court. You works for the city, which means who works for me? The room remained in silence. Chief Garrett continued, unaware of how bad things were burying himself. This case decide today. Marcus Chen declares guilty of possession, gets released, conditional, and all this disappears silently. Officer Walsh, it remains a desk job. Because I'm saying it, the investigation that no talk happens and everyone moves on. He leaned forward with his hands on the platform in front of me. Because if continue down this path, Judge, if you continue by pressing this, things will make it very difficult for you. They can present cases, they can do accusations, people can lose elections. Do you understand what I'm saying? What are you saying? I understood perfectly. The boss. I was being called to the Providence police, threatening in an open court, promising consequences if not I abandoned my inquiry into his corruption. If you believe that corruption must be confronted immediately and decisively, share this video now. Same. Because what I did next, it ended Raymond Garrett's career and exposed a corruption network that it reached directly to the top of Providence Police Department. I got up slowly. Chief Garrett, he just threatened me in my own living room. Of the court. He smiled confidently. I'm giving you the facts, Judge. I'm explaining how things work in Providence. He wants to maintain his position. He wants to avoid problems. He works with me, not against me. Officer D'Angelo, I said, my voice calm, but with absolute authority, arrest the boss. Garrett immediately. The sheriff froze. Your Honor, me, he heard. Chief Raymond Garrett is under arrest for intimidation of a judicial official, obstruction of the justice, and criminal contempt of court. Take him into custody now. The courtroom erupted. The face Chief Garrett went from being confident, surprised. You can't arrest me. I am the police chief. You are the chief of police officer. He is currently a suspect. I'll go kill. If it resists, call for reinforcements. The state police. This is no longer a Providence police matter. Officer D'Angelo, after 38 years of seeing me work, he trusted my judgment. He approached Chief Garrett. Sir, I need put your hands behind your back. Chief Garrett looked at his back, around wildly, perhaps waiting for their officers to enter running, and they would save him. But the only ones, the police officers in the room, were my sheriff, a state patrol car that provided security in the court, and the court itself, Chief Garrett. This is insane, Judge. Caprio, he's finished. He has no idea what he just did. I know exactly what have I done? I've arrested a chief of corrupt police officer who just threatened a judge to cover up the trafficking of his nephew's drugs. Officer D'Angelo, proceed. The sheriff handcuffed the chief. Garrett, the image of the police chief of Providence in gala uniform, complete with all his decorations, being handcuffed in a municipal court. It was surreal. Chief Garrett kept going. He screamed as they took him away. He'll regret this. I have friends. I have power. This won't last. It's making the biggest mistake of his career. The biggest mistake of my career would be to leave that he threatened me and I did nothing about it. Regarding that, the biggest mistake would be to allow that corruption intimidates the system legal. I'm not going to make that mistake. The door closed behind him, suffocating him. Their protests. I went to the patrol car state that had been providing security. Patrolman Michaels, I need that he contact the state police of Rhode Island immediately. Tell them that I've arrested the police chief, Raymond Garrett, for intimidating an official judicial. I need detectives from the state police here within an hour to take custody and begin a formal investigation. The patrolman Michaels, still in shock, nodded, and she pulled out her radio. I looked at Sarah Martinez and Marcus Chen. Mr. Chen, your case is postponed pending investigation, released under his own responsibility. Miss Martinez, compile everything that it has, telephone records, witness statements, that memorandum confidential, everything, and deliver it to the state police when they arrive. Yes, there, Your Honor, thank you. Don't thank me. Still. If Chief Garrett said the truth about their connections, we just kicking a hornet's nest, but if it was lying and bluffing, we just exposing a corruption that needed be exposed. Either way, let's go to find out. I looked at the gallery at 50 people who had just witnessed everything. What you saw here today cannot be. Leave this room now. The boss Garrett threatened a sitting judge and obstructed justice in court open. Those are serious crimes. But until the state police complete their investigation, I order everyone here not discuss this publicly. If it happens to voice too soon, the evidence, it could disappear. Witnesses could to be threatened. The co-conspirators, they could flee. Does everyone understand? Heads nodded. She stood up. Session. The gavel fell. In 2 hours, the Rhode Island State Police had detectives in my office taking my statement. I told them everything. The Chief Garrett's presence in the hearing, Sarah's accusations, Martinez, the threats, his statement that he was running the city, and that I worked for him. His promise that the things would get difficult, if not it fulfilled the story of his nephew and his status as an informant. Judge Caprio, he said carefully, the detective principal, Lieutenant Frank Morrison, understands that arresting a boss of the police officer in charge will create massive repercussions. The department, the Providence Police Department, will not take this in silence. Lieutenant, he threatened me in an open court. He attempted to obstruct justice. He addressed his position for force me to dismiss a case against him nephew. What was he supposed to do? Do? Let it happen? No, sir, he did exactly the right thing. I warn you, this is going to get ugly. Before I got better, I was right. In 24 hours later, the story broke. The channel's news outlets broadcast it. Chief of Providence police officer arrested by Judge Municipal. The Fraternal Order of Police Providence issued a statement characterizing my actions as an attack, politically motivated, against the law enforcement. The mayor celebrated a press conference expressing with emotion and concern, but refusing to comment on a research project course. But then the dam broke. Officer Jennifer Walsh, a police officer, had been transferred after arresting Marcus Chen, took a step towards, he told investigators, front. State officials that Chief Garrett had personally ordered your transfer, telling him to forget about the arrest from Chen. She revealed that David Chen had been selling drugs for years under the protection of being a confidential informant, that the boss Garrett had been covering for his nephew, allowing him to operate with impunity. Two other officers gave a "I'm stepping forward" with similar stories. Garrett had been running a network protection for his nephew and several other informants who were actually only traffickers paying him for immunity. The confidential memorandum that mysteriously appeared in the mailbox of Sarah Martinez came from the official Walsh, who had copied it before being transferred, knowing that it could be destroyed. In one day, the state investigators had sufficient evidence to accuse the boss, Raymond Garrett, of organized crime, drug trafficking, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, intimidation of witnesses, and corruption of a public official. The prosecutors, federal authorities got involved. The FBI opened a civil rights investigation, and the charges against Marcus Chen were completely dismissed. 2 weeks after his arrest, Raymond Garrett appeared before Judge Patricia Matthews in the High Court for the reading of charges. He was no longer wearing the uniform. His uniform consisted of an orange jumpsuit. Decorations and medals had disappeared. He looked small, diminished, nothing like the powerful figure that had entered my court and me had threatened. Judge Matthews set his bail at $500,000 in cash. He couldn't pay it. Raymond Garrett, who had led the city, who had had connections, who I had promised that I would repent of after arresting him, he sat in a cell of the jail awaiting trial. Your reading, the charges were filed 15 minutes ago. His fall from it took less than 3 weeks. 8 months later, Raymond Garrett declared guilty of multiple charges of corruption. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, a federal prison. In her address, the statement given by the accused before, he said something about the sentence that I'll forget. Your Honor, when I entered the Judge Caprio's courtroom that day, I thought he was untouchable. He had been a policeman for 35 years, boss for 8. He had built relationships with politicians, judges, prosecutors. I thought that was above the surrender of accounts. When Judge Caprio began to ask questions that I didn't want to be asked, I got angry. I made a threat. I said he worked for me. That was it. The moment my career ended. No, when I began to protect my nephew. Not when I accepted money to look towards, on the other hand. The moment I threatened the judge in an open court, believing that my plate would protect me from the consequences. Judge Caprio taught me something that day. Nobody is above it. The law. Neither the police chiefs nor the powerful officials. Nobody would want that. Having learned that lesson 30 years ago, maybe I wouldn't be standing here. Now, 3 years after the conviction of Garrett, I received a letter from the officer, Jennifer Walsh. Dear Judge Caprio, I wanted to update him on what has happened since the chief was arrested, Garrett. The police department of Providence underwent a complete restructuring. The new chief, Chief Maria Santos, implemented anti-corruption protocols, protections for whistleblowers and civil oversight. The culture has changed. The officers who were afraid to report corruption, now they feel protected. Department is rebuilding the trust with the community, but even more importantly, I wanted to thank you. Personally, when Chief Garrett told me he transferred me to do my job, I felt like arresting his nephew was the last thing on my mind. Powerless. He had followed every procedure correctly. I had done everything was fine, and she was being punished for that. When you confronted him, when he refused to be intimidated, When he arrested him despite his threats, me showed that the system can work, that judges exist to protect the justice from corruption, which to confront power, even when it is dangerous possibly. I'm back. I'm on patrol now. I'm an officer, training, teaching the new recruits on integrity, responsibility, and the importance of do the right thing, even when it's difficult. Let me tell you about what you... He did so, regarding how he defended the system judicial investigation of a corrupt boss, about how he risked his career to ensure that you did justice. You saved my career that day, but more than that, it restored my faith that it is worthwhile to serve system. Thank you. Respectfully, Officer Jennifer Walsh, Department of Providence Police. I kept that letter not because I needed to, validation, but because it reminded me of what had led me to the decision I made when Chief Raymond Garrett threatened me in court. I had a choice. I could have backed out, continued the case as he demanded, avoided confrontation. It would have been easier, safer, but there would be sent a message that corruption wins, that the threats work, of that powerful people can intimidate the judicial system, or could to face him, to risk the political repercussions, facing the possibility that maybe he really had enough power to destroying myself. It was the hardest choice, but it was the only consistent choice with the oath he had taken 38 years earlier. If this story, it moved me, subscribe to this channel, share it with anyone who believes that corruption must be confronted, that the plates do not provide immunity for commit crimes, which the judges must defend justice, even when they are threatened by powerful officials. Raymond Garrett thought he was running the city. He thought his license plate made him so untouchable. He thought threatening a judge, it would make his problems disappear. He was wrong, especially in my court. No one is above the law, not even neither the accused, nor the police officers, not even the police chiefs. When he threatened me, I had him removed in handcuffs, not because he's brave or heroic, but because defending the integrity of the judicial system is the responsibility, more fundamental than it has a judge.